A number of those will not have elections a large number of those will not have elections in their area this year. Secondly, of that group, a number will choose not to vote, much as we would like them to do so. Will have chosen never to have voted, and we would encourage them to do so.
So what makes you think getting this voter identification thing through is going to persuade them to vote then? Well, hello then, I do hope you're all well. Now, one thing we've noticed is that this is a subject that doesn't seem to get much airing in the mainstream media. It seems to be a very, very quiet one. And it was something we talked about on the Sunday brunch with Alex and Rob and Max. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And Rob was all over this like a dog with a bone, and clearly knew his onions. And they talked about this situation where this guy, Lee Rowley, Conservative MP for East Derbyshire, and he was hauled into House of Commons to answer this urgent question, to ask the Secretary of State for Levelling Up Housing and Communities that he will make a statement on the rollout of voter identification. And this was a question that was relayed to Lee Rowley by Helen Morgan, MP for North Shropshire and Liberal Democrat. And her view on the situation was she thought that this was quite a cynical move for a bit of voter suppression. And his reply was very interesting.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For months and months, members on this side of the House have fought tooth and nail against the government's voter ID plans. We've warned that it was using a sledgehammer to crack a nut, and that it's at an exorbitant cost to the taxpayer, that it's a thinly veiled attempt to make it far more difficult for people to vote. Mr. Speaker, I was appalled to read this morning new statistics on the government's botched rollout of voter ID. That of the estimated 2 million people who will now need a new form of ID, a voter authority certificate, in order to vote, just 1% have applied. And of that tiny number, not even 21,000, a tiny minority are older people or young people. Groups who, we were warned, risk being disenfranchised under these new plans. We're just 10 weeks out from the local elections. Safeguarding our democracy and that fundamental right, the right to vote, should be the priority of any responsible government. So I urge the Minister to answer the following questions. What are they going to do to fix this? And in particular, how are they going to target groups who have limited access to the internet to ensure that they don't lose out? What engagement will take place with local authorities, and what support will be provided? It seems absurd that they might have to pay the cost for the government's botched rollout of voter ID. Will the Minister commit to, at the very least, pausing this year's rollout? They'll be aware that the Electoral Commission's analysis that this rushed rollout means that the May elections can't be run, in their words, in a fully secure, accessible and workable manner. Will the government expand the list of acceptable IDs so fewer people have to apply for a local authority certificate? Many members were rightly concerned when it was revealed last autumn that some forms of student ID were not included in the list. And finally, does the government have any handle on the level of awareness amongst the general public regarding the need to bring ID with you to vote this May? I would say that the government is sleepwalking into a disaster, but I'm afraid to me this looks a little bit more cynical.
Minister.
I'm inclined to agree with her because for a simple reason. Do you think he got up and said, yes, I totally agree with the list of IDs and we will have another look at this because, yes, we see your point. What do you think?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We're clearly going to have a discussion today, which honourable members have every right, should they wish, to make some quite outrageous rhetoric in terms of what is a basic, fundamental change to ensure that we protect the integrity of the ballot box. And I would...
In other words, can you stop shouting the quiet bit out loud? Yes, this is about voter suppression. This is about stopping the poorest people in our country from voting and stopping those pesky lefties and students who won't vote for us anyway from voting. Let's be honest here. That's what he's on about.
Just encourage honourable members to think slightly carefully about how they want to approach this in the coming UQ. To answer the question specifically, I need to take on this notion that there are 2 million people who need a voter ID. That is not correct. It is absolutely not correct, and I hope honourable members will stop reiterating it. Of those 2 million people, which is an estimate, a number of those will not have elections a large number of those will not have elections in their area this year. Secondly, of that group, a number will choose not to vote, much as we would like them to do so, will have chosen never to have voted, and we would encourage them to do so.
So what makes you think getting this voter identification thing through is going to persuade them to vote then? What an absolute poppycock. The man is talking out of his backside, innit?
But ultimately, that is what the purpose of a democracy is. People have a right both to vote and not to vote, and we are seeking to encourage them to do so. We're seeking to guarantee that integrity, and then ultimately there may have been a choice for people to change to postal votes, or we are continuing to work to try and encourage take-up where it is necessary, but it is fundamentally incorrect for honourable members in this House to suggest that there is some form of target which is being missed. To answer the other questions that the Honourable Lady made, what are we going to do to target groups? We are already doing that. We have already engaged on multiple levels at multiple times with those who could be potentially hard to reach, and we will continue to do that all the way up until May. It is absolutely not correct, as the Honourable Lady indicates, that local authorities are paying the cost. There are new burdens funding both that has been paid, and then there is a true-up process afterwards to make sure that people are not out of pocket. The list of identification which the Honourable Lady asked to be expanded already has over 20 on it, including passports, driving licence, and as I said in the initial response, that includes some element of where expiration has happened. And I would just encourage the Liberal Democrats and honourable members here, we are seeking to ensure that the sanctity of the ballot box can be protected, and I wish that they would seek to support these reasonable and proportionate measures to do so.
Bob Black.
Let's be honest. It's just nonsense. They're just talking out of their backside. We've heard the stories where certain identification for OAPs is acceptable, but similar card for young students will not be acceptable, and just sound a load of confusion, and I think it's all designed that way, isn't it? And again, mainstream media, why are you talking about this? Why are you encouraging people to get yourself sorted and get this all sorted? Let's be honest here. This is voter suppression. We all know it is. My only advice is, when we talked about this on Sunday brunch, I asked Rob, because he seemed to be more over this than me. And the reason why is because I go by postal vote. Not because I had some great vision of the future that, this is coming down, so it's because my mobility is shot to pieces. I cannot make it to the polling booth. So I said, would this affect postal voting? And he said no. And he mentioned postal voting, did Lee Rowley as well. So my only advice is, get yourself sorted for postal vote. That's all I can advise you to do. And also, get yourself sorted out for voting. Do not allow these complete lying charlatans to take away your vote. That's exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to stop you from voting because, let's be honest, they can see what's coming down the tracks, can't they?